Hi friends, welcome to another Table Tuesday. Today we're going to be looking at my Nintendo Space Firebird. This game came out in 1980. It was mostly released here in the United States by Sega Gremlin. Every upright you'll see for the most part was in a Sega Gremlin cabinet. There was also a handful of Sega Minis and there was a handful of Gremlin tables, and there were also Nintendo tables and a very small amount of Nintendo uprights. We didn't see too many of those in the United States. The Nintendo uprights, they were more common elsewhere due to Gremlin publishing Space Firebird here, or at least licensing it. Anyway, this specific table was actually a deconversion project. I had gotten it last year at some point. It was converted to a Mr. Do's Castle, and I am about 99% done with this table project now. It's missing its plexi. There's actually a piece of tinted plexi that goes in between the glass and the shroud. I don't have that. I just need it cut. And then I'm missing the instruction cards. So, but I got it working a couple weeks ago because I was able to finally get all the missing parts that I needed. Primarily a new control panel overlay and an actual Nintendo game board. So let's take a peek at the inside. Sorry, I'm still getting over a cold. So on the inside, I've done a decent enough job at deconverting the Mr. Do package. You'll see that there's still remnants. Like there's these butt connectors, and then this connector for the speaker is not original. You can see that there's butt connectors there. Stuff like that doesn't really matter that much. The power supply is an original Nintendo Space Firebird power supply. These things are notoriously unreliable, so I've been debating about putting in a Meanwhile supply like I did for Hellfire and Head on N, especially considering that when these power supplies go, they sometimes take out the game board, and I just do not want to risk that. Because this power supply has no protections. It's kind of neat. It says TST on the sticker right there for the monitor. All the Nintendo monitors had a model number like that, going all the way back to Computer Othello. Game board mounts just like just about any other Nintendo game. What's interesting about this is that the soundboard is actually mounted to the bottom of the monitor. You can kind of see it down there. You can also see that I had to splice in a new connector because this was cut due to the conversion. Other than the harness hacking, the only other thing I had to really worry about was somebody had cut the piece of sheet metal here and then bent it down for the Mr. Do board. So I had taped it to, or bent it back and then taped it to hide the cut. Just as a simple way of doing that. So while we're here, I also have the control panel undone just so I can show you guys, what that's like underneath. This screw is not original, but it's way too long. But I did not have the correct size. So, yeah. What you guys might notice is that this joystick is actually the same style joystick as Hellfire, except this is a two-way version. I actually do not know the mechanical differences to make it two-way off the top of my head. But you'll notice that there's no switches here to allow it to really act as a 4 or 8-way joystick, and this has no vertical movement. In terms of like the button mounts, it's the same as just about any other Nintendo game of the era. What's really interesting is, you know, these were still full harnesses, so from the factory, they wrapped the unused connectors in plastic so that they were still there in case, I guess, you wanted to convert it. So it was very odd. So let's put this back together so that way you guys can watch some mediocre gameplay. Because, fun fact, I'm still not good at games. That's one thing I just noticed I still need to do. When they had converted this to Mr. Do, they also kind of painted the control panel black. I think you can actually see it being brown on the side, but this wasn't really that big of a deal, so I just haven't fixed that yet because I have to re-disassemble the joystick or the control panel, either sandblast it or wire brush it to get all the old paint off, and then either powder coat it or rattle can it. I am not sure what I'm going to do yet. One thing I will note is that this screw is way too long, but I did not have the correct one on hand, so this is what we're getting. You guys get to listen to me ramble while putting this control panel back together. All right, let's get a game, but before that, I suppose I should show you the instructions underneath. They're almost identical to Helifire's. Won't really focus, I'm sorry. Except for here, it has a picture of the Space Firebird game board and the dip switch settings for this. So, let's get started. Let's actually play a game of this. That's enough stalling. Ooh, that was bad. You want to put it back, tuck it in like that. And we're going to set the camera up so that way you guys can watch me play Space Firebird kind of poorly. One thing I'm noticing is that I actually have a ring on the glass. And it's underneath the glass because what probably happened is I probably had a drink on this, but put the glass on upside down before cleaning it. Oops. One thing you might have noticed is that this game has free play. It did not come with free play from the factory. This is actually a mod that I programmed based on Filmer's, or Filmer on Clov's Gremlin Space Firebird free play mod. There was actually a surprising amount of differences, but his biggest help there was figuring out how it does its ROM checks. Space Firebird actually has a pretty nasty form of, I'm not sure if it's copyright protection or what, but if it detects that that even a byte or two is off, it'll fail a checksum test, and when you lose one life, it will actually make the game crash. He found out where the comparison happens and how to bypass it. Turns out you can basically just skip the oops. Turns out you can kind of just skip that check. So now there's free play mod for Space Firebird, Space Demon, and well, Space Firebird, both the Nintendo and Gremlin versions, and Space Demon. In terms of Space Firebird, mostly shooting, but you can also use the warp crash into the enemies. You get one per life, or maybe I think you might also get it refreshed after you clear the screen, but I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I'm not much of an expert on this game. You know, I love it to death, and you know, I've done all sorts of work for it, such as making a reproduction soundboard. I did that a few years ago. But in terms of the actual gameplay, not that much of an expert. But yeah. This game kind of reminds me a lot of Moon Cresta, actually, just due to the varying enemies and how they move. When's the last enemy? I really like the sounds in this game. Oh, never mind. I guess I'm not going to get that one last enemy. But yeah, no, this game is a blast. If you've never played Space Firebird, you should give it a go. Well, that's really all I have to say. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. Hope you found the internals kind of neat or informative. Oh, you know what? I have one last thing I can show you. When I bought the lot, it actually did come with the original instruction card. This was a lot that I had gotten on eBay. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to really be able to use these. And even so, I had put a new square instruction card before I sourced that. So, but yeah, I know, I figured I might as well show it to you because it was sitting on the couch next to me. So, for real though, this time I have nothing more to say. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a good one.